Here we are starting a new unit, and this unit, the first lesson is called Motion and Speed. The essential question we're going to be looking at is how are distance, time, and speed related? Next, you'll see our standards that we'll be covering in this unit. So we're now on S8P3. Before we were on S8P2. And like each lesson, it's going to start out with an engage your brain section. So the first part of this asks you to circle the correct words in the paragraph below to make the statements true. So a dog usually moves faster than a bug. That means if I watch them move for 1 minute, then the dog would have traveled, and this is where you're going to circle. Is it going to be greater or smaller distance than the bug? So you would circle one of those two words. And then, however, a car usually goes, you choose between faster or slower than a dog. If the car and the dog traveled to the end of, oh, I don't know what the end of it is. So those are your two choices there. Number 2 wants you to explain. So it wants you to draw and sketch something that you might see move. Write a caption that answers the following questions. How would you describe its motion? Fast, slow, sporadic? Is it moving at a constant speed? Or does it speed up and slow down? So you could pick something in the classroom. You could think about something if you were on your way home to sketch out. Just make sure you have a sketch and answer these 3 questions. Next, you have an active reading, and it says fill in the blank with a word that best completes the following sentences. If an object changes its position, then it is blank. The speed of a car describes blank. Hopefully by the end of the lesson, if you didn't know those 2 blanks, you'll have those down pat. So the first subset of lesson 1 is called location, location, location. An essential question here is how can you describe the location of an object? So make sure that you read your textbook as you're going along. Just don't skim, don't just answer the questions. The textbook has a lot of great explanations and examples for you to help you understand the concepts that you need for the class. And so number 5 asks you, how would you describe where this question is given on this page? Give 2 different answers using 2 different reference points. So to give you an example, I put a koala bear on the page. I didn't want to do your question because that's what you need to do. But if I wanted to say something about my koala, I would say he is on the right side of the page, halfway up. Or I could say the koala is 2.5 inches up from the bottom of the page and 6 inches from the left of the page. Or I could frame it in terms of the picture. I could say that the koala is in half the page next to the picture of the carousel. So now it's your turn to come up with a description on how do you describe where the question is in words. Next, it wants you to apply the content. And so it says one of your friends is at the southeast corner of Monkey Island. So I wouldn't read any farther. And what I would do, I would take a pen or a pencil and I would mark where the southeast corner of Monkey Island is. So therefore, you need to know the cardinal directions. You need to know that north is usually up, south is usually bottom, and then east and west. And so the southeast Monkey Island, so here's south. Southeast would be about right there. So it's the lower going towards the south, and the east is going this way. So I'd say it's about right there. Your friend would like to meet you. How would you describe your location to him? So this is another one of those write the path to you, and you can see it says that you are right here. So, in your description, are you going to talk about just the road, or are you going to talk about what you're going to be walking past, what you can see in the foreground? Like if I was starting there on the Monkey Island facing southeast, on my left I would see tigers, and on my right I would see the petting zoo. So, would you include that in your description on helping your friend find you? Next, need to go and visit the first aid station. How would you describe how to get there? First you have to find the first aid station by looking at your key over here. And then when you find the first aid station from where you're at, write a description on how you would get there. Hope you guys recognize this. Six Flags. I have no spatial sense whatsoever. So you could put me in the middle of Six Flags, spin me around, and I would be lost. It's scary. And so I don't like going to theme parks like this unless I have someone who's going to be my coordinator, my person who knows where they're at, can find what's on the map and where we need to go, because it just overloads my brain totally. So describing where you're at. So if you were up here, I don't even know, I haven't been there in such a long time. If you were up here next to this, what would you tell a person who was over here how to get to you? You'd use things that were on the way. You would use left, right, north, south, east, west, anything to do to help you get that person where they need to be. So direction actually has 360 degrees. And scientifically, when we measure wind direction, um, yes, we'll say east, but if you're a scientist looking at wind direction, you would say 90 degrees. So we can break up the direction into degrees. So I could say to you, go 5 steps, 100 degrees, 110 degrees. You would know exactly how you would need to turn and then take the 10 steps. So you're going to have a handout to work on. It's called Directions, and it wants you to look at these points on the map and then answer these questions. So 6 is south of 9. I'm just making that up. 7 is west of 6. So what you're going to do is look at the points and then fill in those blanks there. And that will be the end of this lesson.